Ang question is, sino ang kukunin ng UP next sa NU team na to? Kasi every year may kinukuha si UP eh.
God.
Let's move on to what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the graduating players of season 85 from each team, no, from every team. The way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about the teams based on their standing, based on their rank no season 85, but we're going from the bottom up. Okay? So, by the way, most of the graduating players we're going to mention today, we're just basing these on the articles that we read. So, kung meron man mali or meron kaming na miss out, please correct us in the comment section. Share the links of your sources kasi honestly, like, it's kind of hard to look for information on graduating players. So let us know. But let's start. So if we start from the bottom, we're going with UST first. Now for UST, isa lang supposedly ang graduating player nila. So more or less the entire team is intact. Makes sense kasi I think si Coach Baldavid recruited like 4 or 5 rookies nung season na to, no? So it's a relatively young team. Even their superstar is young. So the only graduating player si Garing, played some decent minutes, but not sure how big of an impact it will be losing him.
None.
But none.
Probably
I was
none.
trying to put it
Sorry to Garing, but probably
nicely. I was trying to put it nicely.
Pero
sige, none.
let's be straight, pare.
I know.
Let's be straight. It's not gonna matter that much.
Okay, fine. Pero, we're gonna talk about something else. We're gonna talk about the speculation or the news na lots of foreign teams are interested in getting Nick Cabanero already. In recruiting Nick Cabanero. So, he may not be a graduating player, but UST could potentially lose Nick Cabanero. So, what are your thoughts on that, Gab?
I think we already made a short
prediction
episode
before
on this, Sam. If Nick Cabanero will leave the UST. And honestly, kung ako si Nick Cabanero, I would take those offers kasi
get the bag.
I said this earlier na the departure of Jamba, his name is Jamba pala. Jamba Garing doesn't have wala naman talagang effect because he really didn't play big minutes, didn't really contribute a lot to the team. So the only way that they're gonna get better is if they recruit players or they develop internally. So, but I don't really see a lot of talent there that they could develop internally. We saw flashes from Royce Mantua, but that was it. Their other recruit, Pangilinan, I don't see much from him. His handle is not that great. His shooting is not that great. Again, but I could be wrong. Maybe internal development. They could develop their games in the off season and they could eventually grow together as a team. But honestly, I don't see any way for Nick Cabanero in the next 3 or 4 years to actually make the final. They don't make the final four, but to win a championship or something. I just don't see it right now for Nick Cabanero. So, yeah, rather than toiling at the bottom of the standings in the next 2 to 3 years in UST, I would take the money. Diba? Go get the opportunity, you go get the bag. Cash in now, while you're young. He's just 20. I think he just turned 20.
Turned 20, so, yeah.
So yun, you pretty young. I would take the offer if I was Nick Cabanero.
Anything you wanna add, Maui?
Ako yung take ko naman is a bit different. With losing Nick Cabanero, probably big blow to UST. But I think if Lastimosa, I'll bring Lastimosa in. Lastimosa and Nick Cabanero gets an offer abroad, they should really get the bag. And I think it would be beneficial to the whole UAAP just because smaller market meaning teams that are not funded that much will get more opportunities to get key players just because they will see that players from these teams also get the opportunity to play abroad. So probably Gab mentioned baka in 3 to 4 years, UST will probably not still be a Final Four contender, probably be a fringe title contender or Final Four contender. So I think if he gets the offer, time to go. But yeah, I think it could be beneficial also to UST, as crazy as it seems.
Okay. Wow, Maui looking on the bright side. um, I forget saan ko to nakita. So obviously, like I agree. Losing ni Cabanero is a big blow to the UST team. I forget kung saan ko to nakita, but alam niyo yung speculation or issue now with like SMC and Letran. SMC is still thinking about whether or not they will be helping or funding Letran's team next season. And there was like an article somewhere, sorry na lang, di ko maalala, na they might consider another team. And people were floating the idea na maybe they can help fund UST and bring back the UST program. So parang Maui mentioned 'di ba? Parang one of the small market teams, aka the teams that aren't as funded as well. Maybe if they get a boost from like an SMC or those one of those big corporations, this could really turn around the team. That's one. And two, I don't know, maybe they could make a decent, push for Nick Cabanero. Because I feel like si Nick Cabanero, he really wants to play, he really wants to compete. It's just that nakikita naman natin yung body language niya. He was visibly frustrated, especially during that Adamson game ba yun, where they almost won but they lost in the end. So I understand why he would consider leaving, knowing na, maybe not a lot of things will change, or same team pa rin kami next season. So I understand if he would leave, but definitely a big blow for them if ever. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Sino ang
Next,
next team after USD? FEU?
FEU.
I can't
FEU.
believe I'm saying this, but FEU is the second to the last team. Okay. So, for FEU naman, the players that are graduating, isa lang, si Sandagon.
Yeah, they're big
More or
man.
less, yeah, more or less everyone will still stay. Para si LJ Gonzalez, ang tagal nang nasa FEU, no?
Yeah,
Akala ko nga,
Tagal na.
tagal na
akala ko
niya,
nga
pare.
graduate na siya last season or something. Nagulat ako, nasa season 85 pa siya But oy, sige. Just Sandagon. Um, what do you think? I think si Sandagon had like one or two good games where he was like the top
Yeah,
scorer.
he had. I think it was against. He had 20 points against UP in the first round. I do
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh,
Tama.
so he
UP
was a
yata.
pretty decent big man. Di naman consistently doing much of scoring. Guys, I mean, he had perhaps one or two good games. Pero again, same as UST, it's not really about who's going out, who's graduating. It's more who's coming in and what do they do with the players already there. So again, internal development and who's gonna come in for the next season. Not really about Santagon. He's a role player at best.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they have another big man who they wrote they use sparing. Her coach Olsen used sparingly. I forgot his name. Such with an O. Ona ba yun or something. I forgot his name. But yeah, they do have another big man uh, on their bench who can back up Patrick Chuente. I still think si Patrick Chuente, si ang FSA nila, foreign student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard or seen any news about a new recruit, a new foreign student athlete yung coming in. So yeah, same with UST. It has to come from the inside or it has to come from the outside. It's not about the guys who are leaving for FEU.
Good
Wait,
point, Gab. But
not
also
Joe.
just to add dun sa coming in, hindi din natin alam kung sino yung magiging coach, di ba? And I think you guys mentioned kanina, whoever the coach will be for LaSalle, important is building that culture. I think it's the same thing for FEU. Kasi FEU has always had a Rosella coach for the longest time. So they've built that similar culture, si Coach Nash tsaka si Coach Olsen. And it was so tight yung culture na yon and yung connection nila with Coach Olsen na si Sandagon lang ang graduating player, but right now, remember, people are speculating that the four of their starters might leave the FEU community. So we also have, if we're talking about like Nick Cabanero potentially leaving, we also have to consider like these four FEU players potentially leaving. In particular, si Cyrus Torres, LJ Gonzalez, Patrick Sleek ba yung
Chuete.
isa, and then
Heath.
si Cholo Añonueva.
And
So,
Chuente.
Kahit si Chuente rin.
Chuente also said he might leave. Okay, so five players.
5 key players.
So something that we still haven't heard anything about yung potential coaches. We know si Pipo Nuhondo is a potential coach. But
Denok din, si Denok.
Denok also, mga graduates din from FEU. But that's something that could be really huge for FEU. So if FEU is second to the last now and yung limang yon Gab aalis, for sure bottom placer na yun, no? For sure.
Oh,
Last place FEU.
yung competing sila with UST for
With
for
UST.
number 8.
Yeah.
Rebuilding time.
Maui, ano sa tingin mo? Like, you wanna add anything?
I think you guys covered most of it naman. It really boils down yung coaching change, I think, sa FEU. If only Sandagon will leave from the current roster. Similar with LaSalle, they have to build a culture. It's, to me, losing, you guys know na super high ako with the Racela brothers. Losing also Racela could be a big blow to the UST to the FEU program. Kasi yung culture nga they've built, the both brothers, during their stay with FEU. Despite the down year this year has been, they've really stretched yung lineups that they inherited. So, yeah, I think potentially nakakaliw kasi maraming players nung glory days ng UAAP for us nung early 2000s ang potential coaching will potentially coach both FEU and LaSalle. So let's see how that develops.
Oo nga, no? Magandang angle yun, no? Mga former players in the early 2000s becoming coaches for their teams now. Sige, let's move on. So, we're done with FEU. The next team for us is UE. The surprising UE Red Warriors.
This is big.
Lots of big players. Tama ka, Gab. Lots of players and important players are leaving UE. So, we know si Villegas, he was our Mr. One and done, diba? So Villegas is probably the biggest loss. He's a mythical 5 player. They're also losing supposedly si Payawal, si CJ Payawal. And then Nico Paranada is supposedly graduating. Now, I think Maui was the one who mentioned na ito yung medyo hindi kami sure kasi there are articles that say according to Jack Santiago, both Paranada brothers are leaving. Pero some other articles say na it's just Nico Paranada. Si Payawal din, sometimes we see na one and done siya, but the others say na may 2 years siya, so may next year pa ba siya? So those are some of the things that we're not sure yet. But let's just assume na we all know Villegas is leaving. Let's just assume na both Paranadas are leaving and Payawal. Where does that leave your UE Red Warriors, Gab?
Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board.
That's their rotation right there. That's their finishing lineup. Si Gani Stevens na lang yung natitira.
Hey, Gani Stevens. Tsaka si
Uh,
Remogot.
yung nga. So, again, it's back to the drawing board for UE. Coach Jackson Thiago did mention that um, they are looking at recruiting a lot of young players to come in. So they have to look forward to that because um, their cupboard is now bare again. Gani Stevens is a pretty decent big man. I wouldn't say he's uh, life changing or team changing or will move the needle for them. I mean, he's there. He's good. He's a big body. Rimogat, I'm interested to see if he can step up and prove that his last two games in season 85 were not fluky or were not just a two-game hot streak. I do want to see him improve on that. Uh, Other guys that are I saw flashes of it from UE, Sigil Buena. I like what I saw from him in his limited minutes. Abdul Sawat, maybe, but he's been there for 2 years, hasn't really shown much. But again, internal development, but their cover's gonna be dry. I was pretty high on UE this past season because they were 0-14 in season 84 and they won 5 games this season and really battled in all of their games and were pretty entertaining to watch. I'm interested to see how Jackson Thiago figures it out next season. I love the way they played, but those four guys were their main gunners. All of them, the offense was built around those four guys shooting threes. So with the four of them gone, it's interesting where they're gonna go for offense because those guys talaga were everything to them. So
Okay. Maui, I think one player that Gab didn't mention is Harvey Pagsanghan.
Yeah.
You think he can sort of like
nga pala, nandiyan
improve
pala si
again next
Harvey.
year? Improve again next year and carry the team? What do you think?
Actually, expectations ko I thought si Harvey Pagsanghan would be one of the top guys this year. But he was a scorer kasi previously, but this season he was more of a facilitator. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think Jackson Chagos building something in UE. They're very fun to
Mm-hmm.
watch. Very analytical yung play nila if you watch. Minimizing on mid-range jumpers, maximizing those 3-point shots and really penetrating sa basket. And hopefully we see them compete sa season 80 the next season 86. But yeah, I think even if only one Paranada leaves and si Payawal if he plays, si Luis Villegas was really a key cog sa team nila. And he was validated when he was selected as part of the Mythical Five despite UE finishing sa bottom ng standings. If you watch yung UE games, he was really the versatile forward that they needed. Hopefully people like Harvey Paranada Harvey Pagsanghan will step up next year. Hopefully they will be as fun to watch. Same as Gab, previous years hindi ako masyado nanonood ng UE games, but this season very entertaining basketball. And I think meron din talaga yung UE parang nagkaka-following din sila with Phil-Am players, which is a staple of Pumaren Lions before. Probably Jackson Thiago was able to get recruits also from abroad, which is why si Gani Stevens also transferred. Supposedly was supposed to play COST. Hopefully we see recruits. I mentioned kanina if Cabanero leaves and if Lastimosa gets an international offer, they go there, it will be beneficial to the whole league. And I think if this proves it, if UE starts to get also yung key players na Phil-Ams na would have normally gone to a more stacked team like UP, La Salle, or Ateneo.
Okay. Good points. Speaking of siguro yung foreign players or Phil-Am, I think UE is the only team na walang FSA, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm not sure if that's something that they would consider. But that could also help them next year, maybe. I know Gani Stevens is they're starting big, but they could get like an FSA. They could have like two solid bigs, maybe. But yeah, I think pretty much you covered everything on UE. I think UE was Gab's probably second favorite team in season 85. So we always talk about how good they were and how fun they were. And speaking of culture, I think it's Jackson Chago, except for that, like that yung that time that he got suspended for like saying na saktan daw si Richie Rivero. I think he's building a good culture in UE. And the players, the alumni are watching, di ba? Sabi natin like sina Polly
Barometer yun.
started watching the games already. So that's a good sign for UE. So they're losing a lot, tama si Gab, pero they're building a culture now. And that's something I think Gab, if you remember, we talked about that in the previous season when we talked about how we could fix UE. One of the things that we both agreed on was finding the right coach that can build a good culture for their team. And I think that's exactly what they're doing. So nakikinig din yung UE management sa
Yes,
Boleros.
I was gonna say that. Mga fans ng
Thank you,
Boleros
thank
yung
you.
mga
Fans
sports
of
director
Boleros.
ng UE.
Oh, okay, sige, let's
Batukan
move
tayo
on
ni
bago
Don
tayo
Aliado niyan.
makarma dito. Oh, bago tayo makarma dito. Oh, another former Lasal coach, by the way. Lasal, baka naman. Let's move on. Speaking of Lasal na yung next for team for our discussion. So, I think for Lasal, it's only Shawnee Winston, pero I don't want to say only kasi he was an MVP contender. Gab, you want to start? Or Maui? Let's start with Maui naman this time for
Yung
Lasal.
dapat isama na niya si Joaquin Manuel palabas.
Teka, hindi ba magka-age si Joaquin Manuel tsaka si Dave
Si
Ildefonso?
Dave. I know.
Yeah.
Batchmate ni SJ yan eh. Sa kanila ni
Bakit
Dave.
mention
So,
pa si...
Si
so
Joaquin
baka
he's
Manuel.
one more
he's
year.
still there.
Baka
I think
hindi siya nag-team A
one
agad.
more year si Joaquin Manuel.
Wag
But
na.
yeah, Shawnee Winston,
Go Mau.
big blow to Lasal, but I think yung real question sa Lasal is sino yung next head coach. Once they name the new head coach, I wouldn't be surprised if a few players leave. Si Mark Nonoy is a name I would be looking at. Even Evanelli is another name. Lasal has a lot of recruits coming in. Definitely, that's always been the case. Some of them are from the under 18 club, ng Philippines. Sila Gagate and sila Coronel. And some other players I think na nasa team B nila that they're really excited about. But really, I think I think yung main issue with Lasal, if we talk about Lasal, Shawnee Winston is a big loss, but they were also struggling when he was there. Yung head coaching talaga, let's see where it goes. What happens after if a few players leave, if a few players transfer, let's see.
Ako naman
Gab.
yung the main problem with me is when Shawnee Winston was out the second round, a ton of the offense fell into Evanelli's shoulders. As in, even in their last two games against UST and Adamson, their offense was entirely just Evanelli. He was doing everything. And that kind of puts a question to me for Mark Nonoy. Because he was supposed to be the other guy. Diba? He was supposed to be the other guy who could get off and score some buckets for this Lasal team. But he's had some good stretches, Sam. Diba? We saw him have a good game against UE, which they eventually lost. But overall, sobrang he hasn't been the guy that Lasal thought he would be when he transferred from UST. Sometimes pretty erratic, does not know when to slow down, is not as consistent of a three-point shooter as he was in UST. So I'm interested in how Mark Nonoy responds next season. Because I think we know that Evanelli can handle the LaSalle offense. Can be the guy for LaSalle. I mean, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good point guard, a pretty good scorer. He can handle the offense and carry a huge offensive load. The question for me talaga is Smart Nonoy. He's not. He has to help Evan Nelly carry some of the offensive load. Now, maybe that will change if, sabi nga ni Mawid, LaSalle has a lot of pretty good young recruits coming in. Maybe sila na yung mag-carry ng offense, di ba? Or maybe you'll see CJ Ose or EJ Abadam develop into more of a playmaker.
Penny
Or
Stasio.
Penny
or
Stasio,
a lot
yeah.
or the new coach will do a Mike Malone and just put the ball in Kevin Kiambao's hands and he will become the point guard and suddenly he'll put up Jokic-like numbers. Maybe. Again, like I said in our earlier topic, LaSalle is such a wild card talaga. Sobrang wild card. Di mo alam are they a top tier contender? Are they in the bottom? Or are this team in the middle? You don't know kasi they could go either
Anywhere.
way talaga.
Yeah.
They could go anywhere talaga. You don't really know. You have to depend talaga on a lot of situations. The coach, yung gaya na sabi ni Mami, yung ni Maui is a very important piece to this. How he utilizes that talent that LaSalle has. But yeah, in terms of Sonny, thank you talaga. You had great games. You killed Ateneo in the first round of season 85. I saw you score a bunch of points there. So thank you. But in terms of losing him, I think they have enough talent to just
Offset.
Yes, to offset the loss of Sonny Winston. Sam.
Okay, I don't wanna add anything else kasi si Gablim, one of the biggest haters of Shawnee Winston, said thank you to Shawnee Winston. Let's end the podcast there. Let's not talk about anything else. Probably the best moment, one of the best moments of Boleros ever. Kasi ako, I like Shawnee. I like his mid-range game as a mid-range guy. So, Shawnee Winston, you have a new fan in Gab.
Good luck, Shani.
Good
Good
luck,
luck
Shani. Good luck,
wherever
Shani.
you go.
Good luck wherever you go.
Sige, let's move on. After LaSalle is Adamson, and we sort of talked about this. I don't know if you want to add anything else, but basically Adamson, according to Coach Nash Rosella, walang mawawala. Everyone will still have an eligible year next season. The only big question mark is if Jerome Lastimosa will decide to leave for the KBL or the Japan League or whatever. And we've sort of talked about this. Anything the two of you want to say?
I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, Sam. I think we've talked about this in previous pods already.
Yeah, definitely.
Very lengthy discussions yun na tayo doon. Again, just depends on whether Jerome decides to stay or not. They're essentially the same team. So,
okay. Sige. Next, we're moving on to our top 3 teams. The NU Bulldogs. And what's good about this is not a lot of people will be leaving also. Si Jonas Tebayan and si Mahinay ang mawawala. I think out of the two, definitely si Mahinay yung mas nakapaglalaro. So, how big of a loss is this? Because those two guys are huge. I mean, huge. Literally. Like, malalaking
wala nang 5 fouls na
big
yung,
players.
na yung mga gamit para kay Mahinay. Sorry to Jeremy.
Brian.
I love you, bro. You're a big guy like me. You're a big husky boy like me. Pero, man, I saw him in 3 or 4 games this season. This past season, where in the first quarter he picked up 3 fouls agad. So,
to be fair, ano ba height ni Mahinay? Like what? 6'4"?
it's like 6'4", 6'3".
6,
Big guy,
yeah,
but
generously. But he's guarding like si Malik Diouf against UP and like some plays pag foul trouble si Omar
Ayun
John.
nga eh.
So, I
He's
feel bad for
basically
the guy.
there. He's just basically there to be a big body and give up fouls, which he does very well. Pero they have his replacement already. They already discovered his replacement in Paloselo. So I'm not that much worried about NU. I think there's still going to be a contender. I don't think that there's any argument to that. Intact lineup. They're gonna get more recruits for next season. I think they're gonna be pretty good next season. They're gonna challenge for number one next season. NU. So I'm looking forward to them. Again, those two guys, si Jonathan Dibayan doesn't play much. Si Mahinay just plays minutes to give rest to Omar John. But si Paloselo is a better player than him, so I'm looking forward to more minutes for Paloselo. So, Maui, anything to add?
I think regardless kung sino naman umalis sa NU, they will be very competitive for next year as long as not bulk of the lineup. It's really yung team nila talagang next man mentality, next man up mentality. They're probably one of the deepest teams sa UAAP in terms of like yung drop off from the starting lineup to the bench. Sometimes Steve Nash even starts sa bench. Yeah, and I think Gab covered naman most of it. I'm curious to see what happens next year. We saw a team like LaSalle struggle to get over the hump and get from that third seed into a title contender, a legit title contender. So let's see if uh, this NU team can elevate yung performance nila from this season. I think they're also one of the fun teams to watch this season. They forced a lot of turnovers, very fast yung play. And for me, yung best thing talaga is hindi mo alam sino yung pupuntos. You didn't know who will kill you that game. That's very telling of how good the coaching staff really maximize yung players and their lineup. So let's see next season.
Gab and Maui, I think you guys are missing the point in this NU discussion. Um, it looks like si Mahinay lang and si Tibayan ang mawawala, pero ang question is sino ang kukunin ng UP next sa NU team na to? Kasi every year may kinukuha si UP eh.
Gago.
Ngayong top
Tama
team
na.
na yung NU number 3 team. Sino na ang next na kukunin natin? Si Baklaan ba?
Wow.
Or si Malonzo ba? Game, sino na ba? Let's speculate.
Oh
Sino
my
na ang
God.
kukunin
Grabe
ng UP
kasama.
next?
You went there? Oh, grabe.
Ano?
Sinong next
Kasi,
na kukunin ng UP sa NU?
sino na next? Dito tayo magre-recruit eh. Ito yung recruiting
Si
pool
Paloselo
natin
pare
eh.
kasi yung nawalan
Palo
ng backup
Shelo,
center.
pwede.
Yung nawalan ng backup
Shelo,
center ang
solid
UP.
yun.
Kukunin lang si Paloselo.
That's true. We'll find out. Okay,
That
but
would be
pretty much
crazy
we covered, I think.
though. Kung
Kung meron
mangyari
pa,
yun.
You
kung
think?
meron
You
pa,
think?
sobra-sobra na. Tingin ko baka
Ako rin, parang-
Pati
magwala
sa
na
high
si...
school.
Well, I
Pati
think
sa
yung
high
high school
school,
naman
baka
more
meron.
understandable. Pero yung 2 off seasons, kinuha yung key players, probably si Jeff Napa will lose his mind. To be honest. Kasi medyo galit siya talaga na kinuha si Leland Torres at si Felicilda if you looked at yung yung press conferences niya ng NL News.
Yeah. Okay, sige. Speaking of UP,
Grabe
let's move
kasama
on
eh.
to UP.
Grabe ka Curveball
Bro,
yun
I'm
ha.
just-
Hindi ko alam yung
I'm
bring up
just,
mo yun.
I'm just looking at the facts. No cap. Let's move on. Speaking of UP, let's move on to UP, the number 2 team this season. UP's losing quality players, like really good
Yeah, they're losing
players.
a lot.
The first one that comes to mind is obviously Zave Lucero. Lost him to an ACL, pero he was a
Graduating na rin.
big time player. They probably lost the championship because they lost Zave Lucero also. He could have made a huge difference. The other guy that they're losing is si Henry Galinato, who Maui, you've always said, diba? If he played for another team, he would have probably started. That's how good Henry Galinato is. That's how solid he is. And I think he's going to the PBA, by the way. Sabi niya.
May makakuha rin PBA, finally.
Yeah, finally. Wow, they're getting a quality graduate. Congrats.
Number 1 pick.
And to be fair, their team captain, they're losing their team captain, Brix Ramos. Maui, ikaw comment ka. So,
Wow.
sige Maui, ano sa tingin mo? How big of a loss are those 3 key players?
Di ko kinakaya to. Sino?
Actually, I think naman losing Lucero and Galinato, very big blows. They're two of the probably top players, rotational players sa system ni Coach Goldwyn, especially si Lucero. He was there nung championship ng season 84. But yeah, I think questions around UP ang main question ko, I think, is itong tatlo lang ba yung mawawala this off season. May news reports kasi looking at Carl Tamayo for KBL and Japan B-League. Even si Terence Fortea, I think tinitignan ng KBL teams na.
Yes.
So, UP will cover this in probably another episode. UP has lots of recruits coming in, definitely. But having an intact lineup, having that core group of guys return is very pivotal. I think if Carl Tamayo leaves, yung blow losing Lucero and Galinato will probably be bigger. But yeah, I think they have to look at a replacement, especially for Lucero. Yung energy he brings to the game. And si Galinato, when you talk about Henry Galinato, I really remember yung championship days ng Ateneo when they had Isaac Go. Galinato's a player kasi that could match up decently with foreign student athletes. And I think of all the teams sa UAAP, only Galinato yung local na talaga nakaka-match up really well with FSAs from the bench of any team sa UAAP. So yeah, but I think UP, regardless of losing both of those guys, I think UP will still be a title contender in season 86.
Gab, anything to add?
Nothing much. Just their front court's gonna be really thin. I talked about this in season 84. Their front court rotation was basically Tamayo, Lucero, and Diouf in season 84. They got help in season 85 by getting Henry Galinato to back up Malik Diouf. But losing those two guys, it's now essentially Diouf and Carl Tamayo, if Carl Tamayo chooses to stay, manning the middle for UP. So interesting who they slot in to take some of the front court minutes, because their backcourt is solid. They're still very deep. They're getting back CJ Cancino. They're getting Janjan Felicilda, Ray Alan Torres is gonna come in. So they're pretty deep there in the wings and the backcourt. Yung front court, I'm pretty interested who will go into and take those minutes. I haven't seen much from the other players. Yung guys na yung kumukuha ng spare minutes, si
Bismarck
Lina.
Parang yun na yung
Bismarck Lina just plays a few seconds. So I'm pretty interested if they'll give him yung bigger minutes, because we haven't seen much from those guys.
Yeah, pretty much covered everything. I think tama si Maui. Biggest question is if Tamayo and like Fortea are going to stay. Kasi if mawala lalo si Tamayo, it would just be Diouf left, no? So we'll probably cover that in another episode if that ever happens. But for now, Tamayo is staying. Okay. Down to our last team, the champs, the Ateneo Blue Eagles, losing a lot actually. They're losing Ange Kwame, Dave Ildefonso.
Yun pa lang, a lot na.
Dave Ildefonso, BJ Andrade. Who am I missing? May isa pa eh.
Jacob Lau.
Apat yun.
Jacob Lau.
Jacob Lau. Okay. So, Gab, since nag-comment ka na, how big of a loss is this?
Very, very, very big. uh, Ange Kwame is a defensive force. I've said that over and over and over again the past couple of seasons. He is uh, a pretty amazing defensive player. He covers so much ground. So, yun pa lang wala. Dave and BJ, yes, their wing depth, but I think Ateneo already has uh, next upcoming players and recruits who are coming in to fill in the gaps for those wing positions. We have Chris Kuhn. We've said it. He's now gonna be the main playmaker on the wing for Ateneo. Possibly the return of Jason Credo, who was sat out the past couple of years due to injury or to academics. But Ange Kwame is the big question, man. Big loss talaga. Ateneo would not have won that championship if not for Ange Kwame. He carried them in games 2 and 3. So, kinakabahan ako. I saw Obasa by all intensive purposes. I think he's now gonna be the foreign student athlete for Ateneo.
Mm-hmm.
Obasa, I think he has more of a polished offensive game than Ange.
Really?
Honestly, he has good touch around the rim. Defensively is more of the question mark. Ange, Coach Tab couldn't keep Ange off the floor talaga in all of the big games because Ange was such an amazing defensive presence, as in ibang klase. So, we'll see what Obasa is made of. We're probably, but as I told you, Sam, as I told you over and over again, despite losing Ange Kwame, and I'm sad and I'm worried that we lost Ange Kwame, we did win a championship with Chibuese Ike. So,
Against
I am confident
against
Against
Imbala,
Ben
Imbala.
Mbala.
against Ben Mbala. So, like what Maui has always said, in Coach Tab we trust. He'll find a way.
Oh.
Again, we won a championship with Chibuese Ike. We can win a championship without Ange Kwame. I'm sure of it. Maui.
Okay. Maui, anything you wanna add?
Yeah, I think si Gab, yung ender ni Gab was supposed to be my introduction to Ateneo's ano. Losing Ange Kwame was probably the biggest blow. Ildefonso Andrade, don't get me wrong, very key players, very important. Even if some of the alumni hindi ganun kasaya with the performance of Ildefonso nung Game 3 nung finals. But just being there was a big thing for Ildefonso. But yeah, you saw Ateneo without Ange Kwame. In a 5 or 7 point win nung finals, Ange Kwame was a plus 22. So that's very big. Imagine Ateneo without Kwame and next season. This is probably yung quote-unquote rebuild year ng Ateneo since Kwame is leaving. But yeah, Ateneo competed when they lost 7 key players nung first year ni Coach Tab. Ateneo competed when they didn't get Dwight Ramos and when SC Belangel suddenly got an offer from Korea. I still think Ateneo will be a title contender regardless of who plays as long as it's Coach Tab. But yeah, I've been saying Ange Kwame was the real MVP nung season na to, but I think Ateneo will be able to find a way as long as it's Coach Tab. It will be interesting to see what will happen with Ateneo with Coach Tab ending his press conference on finals that players will have to fight for their positions.
Compete.
Compete to get into the team ng season 86. And it was surprising to me actually na si Sean Quintevis yung naging isa sa mga captain ng Ateneo. So I think he will be stepping into the BJ Andrade role. So Gab mentioned Chris Kuhn. Chris Kuhn will probably get yung role ni David Alfonso. So it's really gonna be about, yung question is really about the void left by Ange Kwame sa front court. We'll see next season if Gio Chu develops more, if Balungay will be more consistent. And we'll get into the recruitment and stuff once we get more clarity and once we're closer to the season. But I think, yeah, Gab mentioned si Obasa. And Obasa, when I watched Obasa, I really saw yung offensive game more developed than Kwame. But I think yung main impact ni Kwame is on the defensive end, yung ground recovers. And kitang-kita mo talaga when Kwame was on ng game 2 and 3 ng finals, yung impact niya sa Ateneo. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Ateneo struggles sa first round, similar to this season and even worse than this season. But pagdating ng dulo ng season, I really think Coach Tab will figure things out.
Okay. Now, I agree with what you guys said. Ange Kwame definitely a big loss for Ateneo. So speaking of big loss, let's talk about that. We've talked about every team now and all the graduating seniors, and considering all the potential players that teams could lose to the KBL, or maybe just players moving teams. Which team has the biggest to lose out of all the teams? Sino yung may pinakamalaki yung mawawalan? Pinaka magiging affected by the people that are graduating and that could potentially, leave? Let's start with you, Gab.
Para sa akin, is a big if Jerome Lastimosa chooses to go, Adamson definitely will lose the most, has the most to lose for the upcoming season 86.
Interesting. Okay.
Talaga.
Interesting.
Honestly, their offense for the most part of the past 2 seasons revolved around Jerome, except for the latter part of the second round. But still, Jerome is a big part of who they are as a team. So he's the heart and soul of that team. He's the heart and soul of the Adamson basketball community. Para sa akin, yun yung biggest loss. I know someone's gonna probably say Ange Kwame, and I was thinking of probably say Ange Kwame. But again, with Coach Tab at the helm, I think kayang i-cover yung loss of Ange Kwame, and yung Ateneo will still contend next season despite the loss of Ange Kwame. But if Adamson loses Jerome, I think they will struggle to make the Final Four. To be honest, talaga maging mahirapan sila.
Okay. Maui.
Yung easy pick talaga, I think yung si Kwame, but as I mentioned, Coach Tab with trust. So I cannot say na yung loss ni Kwame will be the biggest. I'm going on. I'm not sure if you guys would agree, but I think yung UP would really suffer a lot with Galinato and Lucero. On paper, they still have the personnel, but one of the advantages kasi for me yung ng UP is similar to NU. Yung lalim ng lineup, yung depth, when they go to their bench, the drop off of their starting lineup is not that big. But when you're talking about losing 2 key front court players, 2 players that could match up with foreign student athletes, 2 players that could consistently bully, si Galinato could consistently bully yung opposing bench player, forcing teams to sub in their FSA earlier, and Lucero, yung energy and everything. It will be interesting to see kung sino yung Gab mentioned, sino yung replacement sa front court ng UP. But if they won't be able to fill even half of the void left by these 2, it will be a struggle, especially for Carl Tamayo. I think anytime Tamayo or DU picks up that second foul early or that third foul sa second half early, I think will be a big blow to UP. So I'm really picking UP despite CJ Cancino returning. I think si CJ Cancino yung missing piece talaga nila for this season. Unfortunately, he's going back next year. But yeah, I think it really boils, if it's gonna be Bismarck Lina, if it's gonna be Bismarck Lino or a small ball lineup of RC Kalimag, uh, I really think yung chances ng UP is small, a lot smaller than this year. They probably wouldn't be my favorite for next year.
Okay, interesting. Interesting picks. Really expected at least one of you to pick Ateneo. Pero maganda yung argument nyo na, they still have Coach Tab. They've competed with lesser teams in the past. So, that's a really good point, no? Na, like, if you think about it, it seems like Ange is the biggest loss to, like, Ateneo or as a player, no, yung impact niya. But if you think about
Individually,
it, the
he
recruits,
is.
individually, yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yung impact, like yung effect sa team with like the recruits coming in for Ateneo, the system that's in place, um, there's still a chance for Ateneo to compete. So that's a very good point. No, I like how you looked at it that way. Honestly, I was expecting one of you to pick Ateneo. So I wanted to swerve and I wanted to pick either Adamson or UP. Um, as my pick. Uh, but I was more banking on the what if. So tama si Gab, if mawala si Jerome, that's going to be a huge loss for Adamson. Same thing for UP, I think. Sort of agree with Maui. Big loss sina Henry Galinato and Zave Lucero. Mawawalan ng depth. But
Imagine.
medyo may confidence din ako in Coach Goldwyn Monteverde's system. Um, I'm sure they also have potential recruits that we don't know of. But I'm more focusing on the big what if of Carl Tamayo and actually to a lesser extent si Fortea. If Carl Tamayo does decide to leave for the KBL or whatever, then basically wala na yung big man lineup ng UP na sinasabi ni Gab na rotation. It would just really be Malik Diouf na matitira, 'di ba? So I think yun talaga, like yung potential loss ng UP is just huge na I'm sure maraming recruit si Coach Gold pero I don't know. I doubt that he could fill that void. Galinato, Lucero, Tamayo, good luck. So for me, it's going to be UP with that potential loss. Um, just want to do like a honorable mention, I guess. Maybe FEU if we're just talking about potential losses kasi
Ako, UE,
starting five
pare.
nila mawawala. Starting five. UE actually is a good pick. UE also. So lots of teams that could lose a lot of good that will lose a lot of good players in the next season, which means the final four is up for grabs. Anybody can take it. Any team has a chance. It's going to be an exciting final four again, or it's going to be another exciting season, and we're going to be here to talk about it all throughout the year. So we're gonna talk about we talked about graduating players. Definitely we're gonna talk about potential recruits in the upcoming episodes. Um so I guess just to end it, let us know what you think. Which team could potentially have the biggest loss in terms of like impact to the team and impact to their performance and their standings. And sino sa tingin nyo yung players that could potentially leave for better opportunities, not necessarily graduating, but could potentially leave for better opportunities. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe and share the this episode to all your friends, to all the basketball fans out there. It's gonna be a long year for us. Matagal-tagal pa bago tayo maka UAAP season 86. Pero we'll be here for you guys. We'll talk basketball. Any breaking news, we'll talk about it. So just subscribe and stay updated. Thank you. Happy New Year. See you guys.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New
Bye-bye.
Year, Happy New Year.